Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. That snuck up on me, Nick. I didn't know the music was going to start playing. Karlo Broussard's back, so I'm all fired up. We've got Karlo with us, and we've got him for 2 hours. And I forgot to be ready when the music started playing, but we're super happy to have you here on Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. The second hour is going to be game show, so I'm just going to tell you right up front. Second hour is game show. So you're going to need to get a pencil and a piece of paper and gather the whole family around. Don't exclude Grandma and Grandpa. They should be part of it. And make a family activity out of it. But the first hour, we're going to talk about something that is both one of the most important topics you can talk about, heaven, hell, and purgatory. And it's also the topic of your brand new book, at least part of that. Purgatory Is For Real, your brand new book coming out.
That's right. And a new book that'll be coming out within the next month or so, Purgatory Is For Real. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, the subtitle is "The Good News About the Afterlife for Those Who Aren't Perfect Yet."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The whole idea is that purgatory is indeed good news. And so interspersed throughout the book, there will be some independent sections, some standalone sections that deal with joyful truths about purgatory that constitute the good news of purgatory. And that's interspersed within the book along with the apologetic sections, looking at purgatory in non-Christian religious traditions, non-Catholic Christian, among non-Catholic Christian believers, and also looking at purgatory in the Bible. So looking at purgatory in Jesus' teaching, purgatory in St. Paul's teaching, purgatory in the Old Testament. And then we'll think through the theology of purgatory, looking at the magisterial teaching on purgatory, doing a little survey there, and asking basic questions that arise surrounding the topic of purgatory, and using St. Thomas Aquinas as our guide on some of those answers to those questions. So I like it. I think it came out really nice, and I think people will enjoy it.
The cover is fantastic. I love the cover.
The cover looks good. Beautiful. Yeah. So, and I'm grateful to the team here at Catholic Answers to helping me get it done, because it goes through like several different peer reviews, right?
Right.
For the apologetical review, the editorial review.
Everyone always looks sad when they're going through their review. Like, how are you doing while my book's in review right now? Like, nobody ever looks happy while it's getting reviewed.
Well, our editors, both in-house and those we subcontract out, are also well-trained in apologetics. So it goes through several different apologetical reviews. So I'm excited about it, look forward to it. So that's one of the topics of today. We're talking about life after death, and purgatory is one of those aspects of the afterlife. So
Karlo Broussard, our guest, our number 888-318-7884. If you have any question at all about the afterlife, it is welcome today. Heaven, hell, purgatory, judgment, all of that. 888-318-7884. If you want to rush over and pre-order, you can pre-order the book right now. Purgatory Is For Real. Good news about the afterlife for those who aren't perfect yet. If you're perfect, I would say don't get this book. Just don't. I don't want to bring Karlo's sales down, but if you're perfect, don't get this book. Otherwise, you can pre-order now at shop.catholic.com. 888-318-7884 is the number. Karlo, if I may, probably, other than the question of the reality of purgatory and whether or not you can find it in the Bible, probably the most common question we get about purgatory: is it a place? Is it a condition? Is it a period of time? What is purgatory?
Well, yeah, I mean, we would answer in the negative to the question of whether it's a place, like a certain locality. You do find that in the theological tradition. Many great thinkers speculated about, the souls being bound in the bowels of the earth, right?
Yeah.
But within the documents of the magisterium, number one, it's never, made specific statements in a definitive way of pontificating on the place of the souls in purgatory. But in modern magisterial documents, you do have Pope St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, using language that would move away from viewing purgatory as a quote-unquote place, like a geographical location, right, within the physical cosmos, but referring to it more as a state of being, a condition of the soul in the afterlife. Obviously, the soul exists, right, in the afterlife. It just doesn't exist in some specific spatial locality. It's understood more as a condition of the soul, or a state of being, where the soul is undergoing its final purification that's necessary to achieve the holiness necessary for the beatific vision.
888-318-7884, our number. We're talking about heaven, hell, and purgatory with Karlo Broussard. His brand new book coming out next month is called Purgatory Is Real, and you can get that, is for real, and you can get that over at shop.catholic.com. So if I want to think about purgatory as more of a condition than a place, it's or something that the soul is perhaps enduring.
Yeah.
Do I think about, let's say I make it to purgatory, okay? And when I'm there, have I already seen Jesus?
Yes. Well, I mean, have you seen Jesus with your physical eyeballs? The answer would be no.
No,
because
okay,
you don't
right,
have your glorified, resurrected body yet. But if the question is, have I been particularly judged? Have I stood before the judgment seat of Christ? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
The particular judgment that the soul receives subsequent to that moment of death, when the soul separates from the body, that precedes the enduring of the final purification. Or, as some theologians speculate, they identify the actual judgment as the purification. So, as Pope Benedict XVI puts this forward as a possible understanding or view of purgatory in his 2007 encyclical Spes Salvi. And it has gained traction, and it does seem to comport with the way St. Paul describes what we have come to see as purgatory in 1 Corinthians 3:11 through 15, that the soul, as it stands before the judgment of Christ and encountering God's purifying love, right, that whatever impediments remain, any remnants of sin that serve to impede the soul from immediately entering into the beatific vision, as those remnants of sin are being taken care of, it's sort of understood or viewed as being in the presence of Christ, in the sense of being before him, standing before him in that judgment.
One more quick question.
So two ways of looking at it.
Yeah, just before I go to the next caller, one quick one.
Yeah.
Is purgatory hotter than the Floribama coast or in August? Or
Well, you ain't got a body, so.
You ain't got a body. All right.
So it's not going to be hot in that sense.
But it is hot down there. You know what I'm talking about? Like where Florida and Alabama are?
Right. Oh, yes. I was just in Alabama, in Gulf Shores, Alabama, with my folks for a week. And let me tell you something. It was hot.
And it's not that.
It was humid, brother.
Yeah, it's not the kind of. But it's a dry heat. No, it ain't. It's not a dry heat at all.
It was humid.
All right. Guess where else it's hot and humid? Tampa, Florida. Aaron in Tampa, Florida is first today. He's listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. Aaron, thanks for downloading the app onto your phone. Your question for Karlo.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I also wanted to thank you, Karlo, because your focused presentation was amazing, and I was taking notes, so thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. That's very kind of you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask you, because I'm really struggling with the idea of rewards, because I know that we can merit rewards in heaven, but I wanted to ask you, what exactly are those rewards? What is the nature of them?
Yeah.
And can they be lost? So if I commit a mortal sin and then I go back to confession, are my rewards lost? Do I have to start back from ground zero, or do I pick up where I left off?
Yeah, very, very good question, Aaron. Well, first of all, eternal life is revealed in the Bible as a reward, right? So we can merit eternal life, our final salvation. St. Paul teaches this in Romans 2:5 through 6. So concerning that particular reward, eternal life itself, you can lose it by committing mortal sin. But of course, once we are restored back to grace and charity is reinfused within our soul, then that particular reward is indeed gained. Now, there are other rewards that within our theological tradition you find it reflected upon. St. Thomas Aquinas gives sort of this full exposition of these rewards in the supplement to his Summa Theologiae, Question 96, Articles 1 through 13, he sort of gives this full exposition of these different rewards. Ludwig Ott, in his book, Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma, Aaron, has a great section on these special rewards for those who have certain victories. So victory over the flesh, victory over the world, victory over the devil. There are certain rewards that are given in heaven. Also known as or called aureole. is the Latin there for that. Whether these rewards can be lost, I would have to do a little bit more research, Aaron, to give a more precise answer to this question. It is my understanding that yes, they would be lost through mortal sin. Whether they can be regained once restored, it's so far in my knowledge, I think the answer is that no, they are not regained. But I'm open to being corrected on that. I'd have to crack open the Summa and see what St. Thomas has to say about that a little bit more within this realm of speculative theology. But you have that reference there where you can read a little bit more on this, and then check out Ludwig Ott, Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma, in his section on heaven, where he talks about these rewards. And the last thing I would say, Aaron, is that, St. Paul, he does talk about rewards in general. So what are the specific rewards? That's a part of speculative theology in the theological tradition. And to my knowledge, I don't think the church has ever made any sort of pronouncement or official pronouncement on that in its magisterial documents. If it has, it would simply be in the ordinary magisterium and not infallible. But rewards in general, be over and beyond, and along with eternal life itself, we do see that in sacred scripture. When St. Paul in 1 Corinthians 3, 11 through 15, a classic text for purgatory, he talks about the soul that has built upon the foundation of Christ with the gold, precious stones, and silver. He will receive a reward. And if he builds with wood, hay, stubble, he will suffer a loss of those rewards, right? So the venial sins, which are represented by the wood, hay, and stubble, the individual suffers loss on account of those sins. And what is the loss? It's not the loss of the reward of eternal life, it's the loss of other rewards. So St. Paul understands that there are certain rewards that we will receive in heaven. And this coheres with the traditional understanding, Aaron, of even the different degrees of our experience of beatitude in heaven, right? So you could look at the different degrees of beatitude in heaven in association with the different rewards. So the greater the capacity for charity in the soul, the greater our beatitude will be in heaven. So if we lessen our capacity for charity through mortal sin, and then, of course, being restored back to charity, that capacity for charity being lessened, in that sense, we could see a loss of reward. So a loss of experiencing beatitude in heaven in a greater degree, whereas we could have experienced beatitude, a greater degree of beatitude in heaven, had we not committed the mortal sin. So we could look at the loss of rewards in a variety of ways there. What do you think of that, Aaron?
That's excellent. I had a particular reward in mind that I wanted to run by you, because I know that in the scripture there are different crowns mentioned. Like there's a crown of glory, a crown of life in James. There's a crown in Corinthians, the incorruptible crown. There's I think 5 of them mentioned. So are those literal crowns in heaven, or are those symbols of beatitude? What are those crowns?
Yeah. So you could refer, first of all, I would say they're not literal crowns, right? So it's not like crowns that we're actually going to wear on top of our glorified bodies. I mean, I suppose it's possible that you could interpret it that way, but
yes. Sorry.
You want a crown, right?
Well, yeah, come on.
But I think a more reasonable interpretation would be to read it in a metaphorical way as representing certain blessings or rewards that the soul will receive and experience in the afterlife, in the beatific vision, and even at the new heaven and the new earth with our glorified bodies. So these different crowns could indeed represent the different rewards that a soul would experience. And if my memory serves me correct, I think this is how Aquinas views them when he's talking about the various rewards of heaven in his full exposition in the supplement there. So you might want to check that out and you might get some insight.
Thanks, Aaron, for the call. We got to take a quick break. We're talking about heaven, hell, and purgatory this hour with Karlo Broussard. The number is 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. And next hour, don't forget, we got Karlo for the game show.
We'll be right back with more great answers on Catholic Answers Live. Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
The EWTN home video highlight for August is Lourdes with the Franciscan Missionaries of the Eternal Word. Go on pilgrimage with Father Joseph Mary Wolfe and Father John Paul Mary Zeller to the healing waters of Lourdes, where St. Bernadette first encountered Our Lady, and where all are now called to conversion. Order your DVD set at EWTNRC.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or call 1-800-854-6316.
Welcome back on this Friday to Catholic Answers Live. We try to have a little bit of fun on Fridays. I think we're going to have a lot of fun next hour with the game show. This hour, it's always fun to talk about heaven, hell, and, well, heaven and purgatory anyways. But heaven, hell, and purgatory, that's the topic. You got a question about those? Yeah, you can call 888-318-7884. Karlo is the author of 3 books now. He's the author of Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. He's the author of Meeting the Protestant Challenge, which forms the basis of an online class he's going to be doing with the St. Philip Institute coming up, right? Is that kind of a Meeting the Protestant Challenge thing?
Yes, that's right. That's starting, I think, September 14th. That's the 2 Mondays from now.
And that's 8 weeks?
Yeah, we're going to do 8 weeks, 8 consecutive Monday nights, and this is in collaboration with the St. Philip Institute out of the Diocese of Tyler, Texas, under Bishop Strickland.
Joseph Strickland, yeah.
That's right. Stacy Trasankos runs the Institute. So I'll be doing a webinar, and there's a website that they can go to if you just go to St. Philip Institute, Diocese, Tyler,
and then you
Texas.
click on events.
Click on events, and then you'll have the registration page where you can register for this 8-week webinar. So the idea is that, for about 55 minutes or so, I'll be giving a talk on a particular section or sections from my book, Meeting the Protestant Challenge, and then we'll have a good bit of time, about 30 minutes or so, of live Q&A. And I think there's a certain premium that you can purchase in order to have access to the live Q&A, and then a lower price of the webinar to where you can just watch it and listen.
Already people have been calling and asking about that, so you can sign up for that. But also, Karlo's got a brand new book, so we're up to 3 books now. It's still a little while before books will pass babies in Karlo's life, but a few more, and he'll have
a few more, man.
But this one's called Purgatory Is For Real, so that forms the basis of our conversation today. 888-318-7884, the number. Rapid City, South Dakota, Real Presence Radio. Mary's on the line. Mary, your question for Karlo.
Hi, Karlo. Thank you for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller.
Well, welcome, Mary. Thank you for calling.
I have a couple questions. Thank you. I'm a devout Catholic. I've been Catholic all my life. And I have a tendency to look at heaven as really more of a person's opinion versus fact.
Okay.
And so I wanted to know how much stake Catholics and why. Where do we get our you can tell me what our beliefs is, and then tell me what you have to support it. But I picked up a book from a woman called Anne by Anne Alea Apostle, and the book is titled Heaven.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the book?
I'm not familiar with the book. I've heard of Anne the Lay Apostle, but unfortunately, I have not done any research on her and what she's putting forward, so I can't make any comments on the book itself or on her ministry. I've only heard of her in passing, but if you have a question just about the topic in general, I might be able to address that.
Yeah, the question is, so she says her spirit went to heaven with God. He took her there, and she met grandparents that she had not met, and just different people. How do we look at those stories?
Okay.
And why?
All right. So once again, I can't comment on her experience in and of itself, but let's just take a step back and look at what we would call private revelations in general, Mary. You can look up in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, if you just do an online search, Private Revelations, Catechism of the Catholic Church, they have a nice little section in there where the Catechism specifies what private revelations are and how they relate to what we call public revelation, okay? So public revelation refers to the deposit of faith, God's revelation that's embedded in both sacred tradition and sacred scripture that we as Christians are bound to believe. That has been given to us by Jesus Christ and the apostles, and we're bound to believe that for our salvation. Private revelations are real. They can be real. Like God can give private messages to individuals to help that individual in his or her journey to heaven. And also sometimes within these private revelations, messages are given for the Christian people. And whenever the church judges a private revelation to be authentic, although we're not bound to believe it for the sake of our salvation, it's worthy of pious belief that we can accept it and we can believe it as Christians and follow those messages, such as the message from Our Lady of Fatima, right? Or Our Lady of Lourdes, these approved private revelations. Now, there are also alleged private revelations that the church has made no pronouncements on. And so, Mary, whenever we are approaching these alleged private revelations, we have to be very cautious about them, right? So if you're strong in your faith and you know what the church teaches and you're able to go through it with a fine comb, right, and be able to compare what the alleged private revelation is saying against and with what the church says, then it can be fruitful and helpful for you to do that. But we have to be very cautious in doing that. And so in no way would you be bound to believe what this individual says about her experience of heaven. Is it possible that this individual has had these experiences? Yeah, of course. God can do that. And if we have good reason to trust this individual and no reason to doubt her, then it would be reasonable to accept what this individual says. I'm not against accepting what good holy people say about their experiences that God has allowed them to experience. But at the same time, Mary, we must always be willing to defer to the judgment of the church. So if a bishop were to come along and assess these alleged private revelations and make the conclusion that these are inauthentic or not real, well, then we would want to follow the judgment of the bishop on these matters. So that's just sort of a bird's eye view and a general understanding of private revelation. And then you can kind of take these alleged private revelations that the church has made no pronouncements on and sort of assess them and analyze them based upon the principles that I've articulated here and that the Catechism lays out in its section on private revelations. How's that for you, Mary?
That sounds good. I just find a lot of comfort in some of these. I have yet to experience or read about someone's negative experience going to heaven.
Right. Well, I mean, heaven's not going to be a negative experience. So what these individuals are saying about heaven would, once again, once you know what the church teaches, you're able to analyze it, see if it coheres nicely with what the church teaches. And if it's at least cohering and not, running out of bounds of what the church teaches, then it would seem reasonable that it's possible that what this individual experience would be legitimate. But once again, always being willing to defer to the judgment on the church. And if it, reading these alleged private relations gives you some spiritual consolation and is leading you to a more intimate relationship with Jesus Christ and fidelity with, being faithful to what the church teaches and growing in your Catholic faith, well, then that's a good, and we can rejoice in that.
Thanks, Mary. I hope that was helpful to you. We're talking heaven, hell, and purgatory with Karlo Broussard today. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Up next is Nathan in Tickfaw, Louisiana. I don't know if that's near where the hurricane came through, but I hope you all are well where you are, Nathan.
Oh yeah, we were about we were well outside the zone over here toward New Orleans. We're about 60 miles northwest of New Orleans, and that was in extreme southwest Louisiana, and it really kicked that area pretty bad. But over here, we we hardly had any rain and just a little bit of wind.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear it.
We're north of the Gulf, so we don't get all the storm surge up here.
Right. All right, Nathan, your question for Karlo?
Okay, really, I thought of a second part of this on there, which is the Museum di Purgatory in Rome, and if you know anything about that. But in particular, my question is I don't see a whole lot of devotions to the people in purgatory in a lot of churches. Now, there's some churches that do, but it seems like a lot of churches hardly acknowledge much about purgatory or make it a major part of the activities in their church. All
right, well, I'll tell you what we got to do. You can probably hear the music. I just realized we're up against the hard break. So, Karlo, will have to address that issue about why. What's going on, and is that a good sign or a bad sign for us Catholics that when you go into Catholic churches, you don't see a lot of attention being paid to those in purgatory? More with Karlo on Heaven, Hell, and Purgatory right after this. A few minutes each week with our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, will help you understand and defend your Catholic faith like a boss. Get it wherever you get your podcasts or listen anytime at CatholicAnswersFocus.com. We Catholics just celebrated the Assumption and Coronation of Mary, so we asked Father Hugh about these important feasts, and he ended up telling us some really cool things about Mary going to heaven and being crowned queen. Also this week, the Catholic Church teaches that our justification, which can also be called getting right with God, is not a one-time thing but a process. But the letter to the Romans seems to imply that our justification might just be a one-time event. Karlo Broussard explains the truth about what St. Paul taught and why the Catholic Church gets this one right. Catholic Answers Focus is free, brand new twice a week, and now available on YouTube.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
How do we know Jesus founded a visible, organized church? Is today's Catholic Church the same as the Church of the Apostles and the early Christians? What can I say to someone who claims the medieval church became corrupted by pagan ideas and practices? In 20 Answers, The Church, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, helping you to understand how the church Jesus founded is able to carry on through history his mission of teaching and sanctifying his followers. 20 Answers, The Church is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the church and the world. All in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Does the church have too many rules? Join me, Dr. David Anders, as we answer your questions right here on Called to Communion, Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Karlo came back, and we're just putting him to work, putting him right to work. 2 hours today. Second hour, he's got to do the game show with us. This hour, Heaven, Hell, and Purgatory. Actually, one of the most interesting topics you can talk about, I think, talking about the afterlife with Karlo. Karlo's got a brand new book coming out about the afterlife, at least part of it. It's called Purgatory Is For Real. Good news about the afterlife for those who aren't perfect yet. You can get it over at shop.catholic.com. On the line, a gentleman from Louisiana, Nathan, says he goes to church. They don't talk much about purgatory. What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, Nathan, one thought that comes to mind is I would be hesitant to make any sort of harsh judgment because what's going on is, within the liturgy itself, the liturgy involves official prayers for the dead. So if you already have prayers for the souls in purgatory, well, then there really wouldn't be any need to make any other mention of them in, say, the intercessory prayers or something, right? Because the prayers for the dead are already embedded in, for example, the Eucharistic prayer. So, Nathan, consider this Eucharistic prayer 2. The priest prays, "Remember also our brothers and sisters who have fallen asleep so that would be the dead, in the hope of the resurrection, and all who have died in your mercy. Welcome them into the light of your face. So there you have an explicit intercessory prayer for the faithful departed who have not yet entered into the beatific vision and experiencing the glory of heaven. And so you have a prayer for the souls in purgatory there. And so I suppose that one would be inclined not to make any sort of spontaneous prayer for the souls in purgatory, although a pastor could do that at certain moments in their liturgy where he has permission to insert spontaneous prayers. He could do so, right?
Yes.
But maybe perhaps some pastors don't, because the prayer is already embedded formally in the Eucharistic prayer. So that would be one thought that would come to mind. And then finally, a second thought, Nathan, I would say that within the liturgical practice of the church, we do have prayers, explicit prayers for the dead at every funeral mass, right? So every time a mass is celebrated for those who have departed, you have explicit prayers for that particular soul in purgatory. So there you have two formal prayers, formal ways in which the church remembers the faithful departed and prays for the souls in purgatory. Now, if we want to talk about maybe informal ways in which we can have memory to remember the souls in purgatory and to pray for them and to do other things outside of the formal liturgy itself, well then, I'm open to that, right? Where we could approach a pastor and charitably request of him to do more things outside of the liturgy, whereby we could remember the holy souls in purgatory. Maybe on All Souls Day, for example, going out to the cemetery, right, and praying for the souls in purgatory and doing some sort of formal prayer there. And even within the community of the faithful itself, maybe having a day devoted to praying for the holy souls in purgatory, or some sort of novena prayer, right? So those are a few thoughts that I have there for you, Nathan.
Thanks, Nathan. I'll tell you what, our chaplain, Father Hugh Barber, would love your question. He is on us all the time about not forgetting to pray for the dead. So you got a companion in your line of thinking there. Let's go to an anonymous caller. We're talking about heaven, hell, and purgatory with Karlo Broussard. Anonymous, are you there with us?
Yeah.
Hello,
Can
Anonymous. Yes, we can. Go ahead with your question for Karlo.
Hello. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
All right. I understand the church teaches that those souls who are not baptized and get killed through abortion go to a place where there's no suffering, but it isn't much like heaven. I'm kind of torn on where unbaptized adults go after they pass away in a state of mortal sin after a life of sin and not believing in Christ.
Okay. All right, Anonymous. So concerning your first statement, you said, if I remember correctly, the church, you understand what the church teaches about unbaptized infants who die through abortion going into a state of the afterlife that doesn't involve suffering. Well, we could affirm that it's not going to involve suffering. But whether or not those souls of unbaptized infants go into heaven or actually exist in some state of natural bliss that, of course, is not hell, we don't know. The church doesn't teach one way or the other. You do have the church affirming what has been traditionally called the Limbo of the Fathers in its traditional teaching. You have that teaching carrying some weight, never infallible, but indeed carrying some weight. Some theologians would argue that currently the magisterium has gotten away from that teaching on the ordinary level, and that teaching has reduced to what is called a theological opinion, where a theologian would be permitted to hold to the limbo of the children, but a theologian would also be permitted to deny the limbo of the children. And theologians debate about what the level of authority or the status of that teaching within the magisterium. But what the Catechism says, Anonymous, concerning those infants who have died without baptism, is that we entrust them to the mercy of God, and that we have good reason to hope that God gives them the beatific vision, the grace to enter into the heavenly existence. We don't know for sure one way or the other, but we do have reason to hope. So that's where the church is at concerning that. Now, with regard to adults, Anonymous, if I remember, you were asking about, or you were concerned about an adult who dies in a state of mortal sin, correct?
Unbaptized adults.
Okay. Unbaptized adult who dies in a state of mortal sin. The lot of that individual, that is the destiny of that individual, would be hell. For anybody, Anonymous, who dies in a state of turning away from God as their ultimate life's goal, like making a positive act of the will to turn away from God as their life's goal, which is what we call a mortal sin, that individual will suffer eternal torments definitively separated from God. But that turning away from God as one life's ultimate goal involves full knowledge of the gravity of such an action and a deliberate consent, right? Of deliberately, fully consenting to an activity or an action that involves a turning away from God as one's life's ultimate goal, which is what we call a mortal sin. So always remember, Anonymous, that for an individual to be guilty of a mortal sin, whether baptized or not, right, that individual has to, the action itself has to be grave matter. That individual has to have full knowledge of the gravity of such an activity as involving something directly contrary to God as their ultimate life's goal, contrary to reason of a grave, serious matter, and deliberately consenting to that, making a positive act of the will to perform that action. If one of those conditions is lacking, Anonymous, then that individual would not be culpable of a mortal sin, would not be held accountable for a mortal sin, and thus consequently would not have hell as their eternal destiny and dying. So it's possible. So if this perhaps for our listeners out there, Anonymous, I don't know if this is precisely your question, but just real briefly for our listeners out there, if what's driving this question, Anonymous, is can an unbaptized adult enter into heaven? The answer is yes, it's possible. The church teaches in paragraph 1257 that baptism is necessary for salvation, but baptism is necessary for those to whom it has been revealed. And then it goes on to teach how it's possible that God can administer the graces of baptism apart from the sacrament, on condition that the individual is not responsible for his or her ignorance of the revelation of baptism, right? And if you're not responsible for your ignorance, you can't be held accountable for not being baptized, right? And on condition that that individual is responding to whatever graces God is giving that person. We call them actual graces, right? If the will is oriented towards the good and the individual is pursuing the truth according to how he knows how, the truth that he comes to know, then it's possible for that individual to be saved. And so the Catechism concludes in paragraph 1257, God has bound salvation to his sacraments, but God himself is not bound by his sacraments. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Anonymous.
Thank you, Anonymous. Thanks very much. We're talking heaven, hell, and purgatory with Karlo Broussard this hour. We mentioned earlier that Karlo is going to be teaching that class starting September 14th at the St. Philip Institute. You can sign up for Karlo's 8-week class by going to stphilipinstitute.org/events, stphilipinstitute.org/events, or just go to stphilipinstitute.org and hit the little events button and you will come to it. Meeting the Protestant Challenge. It's one of Karlo's 3 books, but now it's also an 8-week course offered by, in conjunction between Karlo and the St. Philip Institute.
And by the way, it's a webinar.
Yeah,
so it's not in person. The class is not in person.
It's
online. It's virtual. Just for in case a listener out there was like, "Where is it held?"
It's held
online
in the internet.
There you go.
stphilipinstitute.org/events.
Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
St. Hildegard of Bingen was a mystic, an abbess, a botanist, a saint, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunsen and the Doctors of the Church.
Hildegard had her first visions at the age of 3, which she called the shade of the living light. She later wrote about them in works declared by St. Bernard of Clairvaux to be from God. Pope Benedict XVI agreed when he named her only one of 4 doctors of the Church who are women in 2012.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Karlo's back in the building. Been away for a little while. It's always more energy in the building when Karlo's here. But he's not only is he back, he's got a brand new book coming out. Purgatory Is For Real. Good news about the afterlife for those who aren't perfect yet. You can order that. You can't buy the book yet. You can pre-order it at shop.catholic.com, and they'll send it to you as soon as it is out. And so that occasions our conversation this hour. It's a conversation about heaven, hell, and purgatory. And up next is Heidi in Illinois, listening on the Covenant Network. Heidi, your question for Karlo.
Hi. Thank you for taking my
Heidi.
call. I was trying to look this up in the catechism before you got to me, but I couldn't find it in time. It's probably a very simple question. So is it the suffering of the people in purgatory that helps them, to simplistically put it, to get cleaned up to go to heaven, or is it our prayers, or is it a combination of the two? Kind of getting at is, how responsible are we for praying these people out of purgatory, or...
Yeah.
And that's
Great.
where I'm coming from.
That's a great question, Heidi.
Yeah, so Heidi, the short answer would be both and. So if we take a step back and we ask, okay, what are the objects of purification in this final purification we call purgatory? These are things I articulate in my forthcoming book, Purgatory Is For Real. So first of all, you have the guilt of the remaining guilt of venial sin. So that's going to be purged, right? You also have another remnant of sin, namely unhealthy attachments to created goods. The Catechism talks about this in paragraph 1472. And in purgatory, those unhealthy attachments to created goods are purged in this final purification. And so that's by way of a application of this purgation, like God is doing his work on the soul, right? Where those unhealthy attachments are going to be purged. And this is all in a passive manner by way of on the side of the soul in purgatory, receiving the purgation of the guilt of remaining venial sin by virtue of the charity dwelling in the soul, the purging of the unhealthy attachments to created goods. The degree of that purging will be dependent on the degree or the rootedness of that unhealthy attachment, but that's a purging that God inflicts upon the soul and reordering the will to him as the ultimate. The will is already oriented to God as the ultimate end, but perfectly aligning the will to God, right? To where the will no longer be inordinately attached to created goods, but will be attached to created goods in a proper way. And that purging is going to entail some suffering. And that purging, Heidi, in and of itself, the purging of the unhealthy attachments can suffice to remit any debt of temporal punishment for sin remaining, okay? Now, within the theological tradition, there's a little bit of debate as to whether there is a separate infliction of punishment on the soul, like an infliction of some sort of quote-unquote pain, where the soul is going to undergo some sort of suffering experienced in order to remit or discharge, to discharge the debt of temporal punishment due for sin. So that's one side of the coin, right, where the soul is passively receiving this purgation, this purification of the guilt of venial sin, unhealthy attachments to created goods, and the discharging of the debt of temporal punishment due for sin from God. But then the other side of the same coin, Heidi, you also have our participation in helping the departed souls in purgatory through our prayers, through our intercessions, through gaining indulgences for them, through offering masses for them, where in these ways we're imploring God by way of intercession to remit any remaining debt or to discharge any remaining debt of temporal punishment due for sin. And also, too, as St. Thomas Aquinas teaches, and I point out in my book, we're not only participating in the priesthood of Jesus Christ and exercising our priestly dignity of interceding for the souls in purgatory, but there is a way in which we can offer satisfaction on their behalf. So in other words, Heidi, we can undergo some form of suffering on their behalf. And by virtue of the bond of charity, our suffering on their behalf can discharge some of the remaining debt of temporal punishment due for their past sins. And this is in conformity to and living out Christ's ministry and his redemptive work. And the Catholic view is that we are called to participate in Christ's satisfactory role, whereby the merits of his sufficient death on the cross are applied to individuals in a secondary way, like a secondary causality type of thing, right? Where Christ wills to use us in our sufferings to discharge any remaining debt of temporal punishment due for sin for souls in purgatory by virtue of the bond of charity. So this is where we're able to image Christ in offering up our sufferings out of love for the sake of others, to atone for their sins, to help discharge any remaining debt of temporal punishment due for sin. So it's two sides of the same coin, Heidi. What do you think of that? Does that help?
It does. It's a beautiful explanation. That's a beautiful view of the universe. I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thanks,
Heidi.
Heidi.
Yeah, and so what's happening in this scenario is those impediments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are saved souls that are guaranteed heaven, but they have certain impediments that are impeding them from entering into the beatific vision. And so God wills that we cooperate with him in his providential plan to remove some of those impediments on our part. And so this is how we're able to help the souls get out of purgatory. But also, God is doing his part as well in purging the souls. So it's not like, well, if this soul doesn't have any prayers of us here on earth, the soul's never going to get out of purgatory. No, purgatory is going to come to an end at the end of time, okay? That's de fide teaching. But it is possible that perhaps God in his infinite plan wills that a particular soul only have the completion of its final purification due to the causality of our prayers here on earth.
Yeah.
So this cause and effect relationship of intercessory prayer, right? In his infinite wisdom, something we don't have access to in this mystery of how God wills to bring about these effects. This is why we must always pray for the faithful departed in purgatory. And of course, if we forget, Mother Church has our back, because Mother Church prays for the faithful departed every time she celebrates Holy Mass. The Mass is celebrated.
Heidi, thank you. Appreciate that call. Let's go to Rich in Cincinnati, Ohio, listening on Sacred Heart Radio. Hey, Rich, your question for Karlo.
So I'm a convert. Was baptized in 1988, and when I went through RCIA, they were kind of very sparse on covering limbo. It was almost like one of those topics they weren't comfortable. They thought it might put people off. So I always kind of just not really thought much about it, had kind of formed this idea that maybe limbo was, the purgatory was like something that happened, after we died, and maybe even partially happened here on earth. And I didn't really think about it, but recently read Pope Benedict's, I believe it was called Saved in Faith, and there was a line in there about how some people, some theologians feel that the pain of purgatory isn't so much punitive, but it's just caused by the encounter with Christ, where you encounter His holiness, and it essentially burns away whatever impurities you have left. And so that kind of got me thinking about, is purgatory, again, is it a place or a process? And if it's a process, like to the extent that we try and see ourselves as Christ would see us and encounter Him here on earth, does that somewhat like reduce the
what we'll need after? That's a great question.
Yeah.
Karlo.
So first of all, Rich, you initially when you started talking about limbo, and then you switched to purgatory. So just for the sake of clarity for our listeners out there, I'm not sure if you are equating the two, but in Catholic theology, we distinguish the two. So you have like the limbo of the fathers. That refers to all of the Old Testament saints where they were existing in the afterlife prior to the ascension of Christ. These are those souls to whom Christ descended into the abode of the dead to preach to them the good news, and according to 1 Peter 3:19, and they enter with Jesus into the beatific vision at His ascension. You also have in the theological tradition the limbo of the children. This is something I mentioned earlier, which the church affirmed on an ordinary level, never infallibly, but ordinarily taught, or at least rejected any denial of the limbo of the children, that the idea that unbaptized infants would dwell in the afterlife in a sort of a natural bliss, not hell, of course, but also not the beatific vision. Now, we have to be very careful not to confuse that with what we're talking about here and what you're asking about, namely purgatory, which the church defines as the final purification of the elect before entering into the beatific vision, at least for those who die at least for those who die and are not perfectly holy yet. They do not have the holiness necessary for heaven. So just with those clarifications made, Rich, to get to your question, is it a place? Is it a process? With regard to a place.
And also he wanted to know, can we accomplish some of it here?
Here, yes. Okay. So if the question is whether it's a place, the church has never given a definitive statement on it, but you do have Pope Benedict XVI, for example, affirming that it's more of an interior experience of the soul, a state of being in the afterlife, right? A condition of the soul, not a spatial location where the soul is bound by some corporeal reality. With regard to whether it is a process, this is, once again, within the speculative realm of theology. The church has never given any sort of teaching on whether purgatory is instantaneous or it's a process. It could be both. For some, it might be instantaneous for some souls, but for other souls, it may be drawn out. Now, it's not going to be the duration or experience of time like we experience it in this life. Some theologians speculate and call it aeviternity, where you have a succession of instantaneous changes. So it's not change in our sense, in physical reality, where you have this progressive, right, actualization of a potential where it's like something is progressing from A to B in this sort of progressive way, but rather it's an instantaneous change. But you could very well have a succession of instantaneous changes, right? And so theologians have called this aeviternity. It's not the eternity of God, and it's not our experience of change in this life within the corporeal world, but it is some change nevertheless. Now, with regard to whether we can experience purgatory to some degree in this life, the answer is yes, when understood in this sense, Rich, that remember, purgatory deals with those remnants of sin that impede us from entering into the beatific vision, okay? So the question is, can we deal with those remnants of sin in this life? And the answer is yes. So when you have the guilt of venial sin, you pray an act of contrition, you ask for God to forgive you, the guilt of that venial sin will be removed, right? Whether with the sacrament of confession or even without the sacrament of confession. You also have unhealthy attachments to created goods. Well, we can reorder that through works of charity, works of love, fasting, abstinence, etc. And then finally, by undergoing any suffering in our life out of love and offering it up to God, we can discharge any remaining debt of temporal punishment due for sin. If some of that's remaining after this life, we go to purgatory. If it's completely taken care of this life, we go immediately to heaven. Go, Cy.
Rich, thank you so much for that call. Thanks to everybody who called. Sorry, some we did not get to. Karlo Broussard's brand new book is Purgatory Is For Real. Good news about the afterlife for those who aren't perfect yet. And it's available for pre-order now on Amazon.com and at shop.catholic.com. Karlo's going to be our special secret guest coming up on the game show right after this. You are, right? You are going to stay for the game.
Here,
all right. Game show coming up. Get your pens, papers ready. Call Grandma and Grandpa. Gather the kids. Time for the game show. yeah. It's time for the game show. I am Cy Kellett, your game show host. We haven't done the Catholic Answers game show in a long time. It's been months since we've done it, so it's fun to be back with the game show. We've got two great contestants all ready to go. We've got Karlo Broussard as our special guest. Karlo is apologist here at Catholic Answers, the author of... It used to be easy to do Karlo's book titles. It's getting harder all the time. All right, Prepare the Way. That's his first book. Second book, Meeting the Protestant Challenge. Third book, coming out next month, Purgatory Is for Real. Hello, welcome back, Cardinal.
Cardinal.
I promoted you to Cardinal. Karlo.
Hey, Cy. Great to be back, brother.
I'm so glad you're here. You're our superstar celebrity guest. I know you don't like celebrity. I didn't mean to say celebrity, but you always help us so much with the questions. I should say, too, I write these quiz questions, and then Karlo sends me notes to say, well, what does that mean? I have no idea. No, he's helped me clean up my language sometimes.
Hey,
be a little
brother,
more precise. Yeah.
I know how it feels, man. I just went through the gauntlet with my manuscript for Purgatory.
Yeah, right.
That's one beautiful thing about working here, right? It's peer-reviewed stuff, man.
Yeah, exactly, that is. All right, so if there's no calls this hour, you can sit back, relax, enjoy the show. If you have not woken up all your relatives and brought them into the family room, the den, the dining area where you can enjoy the game show together, you need to do that right now. Perhaps step out of the room while I introduce our guest. You're going to probably need a piece of paper and a pencil, but this is a family game. We want you to play along at home. Our guest, our first contestant, and I assume that this will be contestant number 1 because she's listed first here. Teresa, are you there with us?
Hi, yes, I am.
Hi, Teresa. Where are you right now?
I am in Southampton, New York.
Well, we're delighted to have you. Can you tell us anything interesting about you?
No, I guess I'm not very interesting at all. Cradle Catholic. I'm a school administrator, and I have 2 dogs, a cat, and a pet rabbit.
I find all of that interesting, actually. I was going to ask Marie to hang up on you and get us a new guest if you were not going to be interesting. But that's all very interesting, yes. Contestant number 2 is Mark. Where are you right now, Mark?
Southern Pines, North Carolina.
All right. It's North Carolina against New York. And what's interesting about you, Mark?
Also Cradle Catholic, retired Army. I still work for the Army. I think the most interesting thing is I haven't missed a episode of Catholic Answers Live since I found it with Patrick Coffin in 2009.
Wow. Wow, Teresa, that's better than yours. I'm sorry, but that's better.
He's way more interesting than me.
No, but that's really cool. I don't want to hear any more talk about Patrick Coffin, though. All right, that's the last time we mention his name while we do this show.
Joke.
Well, hey, Mark, thank you very much for your service. Retired from the Army means
Thank you, Mark.
you did a full career in the Army.
I did, 23 years.
Beautiful.
Well, God bless you. God bless you. All right. Here's the way that I'm going to give you the rules now, and then you can ask me any questions if you have any questions after I do the rules. Okay?
Okay.
All right. We are going to do 3 rounds. They are called Round 1, Round 2, and Final Judgment. Final Judgment is reserved for the winner of Round 1 and Round 2. So if you are the winner after the first 2 rounds, you go on to Final Judgment. If you are not the winner, someone we also call the loser, we are going to give you a parting gift and thank you for your participation. Round 1 is 6 multiple choice questions, 3 to each contestant. And Round 2 is 6 multiple choice questions, 3 to each contestant. Everybody clear on the rules so far?
Yes.
Got it.
All right. There are 2 afterlife lines, however, that are available to you, and both of them are under Karlo's control. The first afterlife line is 50-50. You can ask him to eliminate one wrong answer, and that will leave you with just a correct answer and a wrong answer, and you'll have to pick one. The other afterlife line that you have with Karlo is you can just ask him to give you the correct answer. Is that all clear?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, I got to
In Pig Latin.
They haven't missed the show.
I guess they haven't missed the show. All right, you're right. He'll give you the correct answer, but it will be in Pig Latin. So if we get to your last question and you still have not used that lifeline, I will force you to use it just so that we can hear Karlo say the answer in Pig Latin, okay? All right, Teresa, you are contestant number 1. That only comes into play if the two of you are tied after rounds 1 and 2, because contestant number 1 gets the privilege of picking box A or B, which tells us who goes on. Otherwise, it just means you go first for each question. So, Teresa, we're ready for question 1. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. The major difference between, oh, by the way, I got to ask both of you, don't give your answer until I repeat the question, because families are playing along at home, and they woke Grandma and Grandpa up for this. They gathered the whole family together. And so we want to give them a chance to choose their answer before we get your answer. So I will say each question twice. Question number 1 for contestant number 1, Teresa in New York. The major difference between Jehovah's Witnesses and Catholics is that A, Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept the Old Testament. B, Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe Jesus is God. Or C, Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept the letters of St. Paul. Once again, that question is the major difference between Jehovah's Witnesses and Catholics is that A, Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept the Old Testament. B, Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe Jesus is God. Or C, Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept the letters of St. Paul.
So you want me to answer now?
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry, Teresa. We're ready for your answer. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to say A.
Oh.
I wish it were
That's
that
wrong,
one.
isn't it?
Yeah, it would be better. I mean, because I think it's very serious. I mean, either is very serious. But the correct answer, Jehovah's Witnesses, what?
They do not believe that Jesus is God.
That's
one thing that's essential for Christianity. The Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus was the first created being of Jehovah God, right? So he was the divine-like spirit, the only created being directly created by God, and all other things were created through Jesus, but nevertheless, he was created and even identified as Michael the Archangel.
Yeah.
So he is a created being, but of course we as Christians deny that he is a part of the created order of things because he is equal to the Father in his very being. So we say he is God. Jehovah's Witnesses say he is not.
All right, Teresa, thank you. Question number 1 for Mark. Question number 1 for contestant number 2. Mark, Catholics believe demons are A.
Got the first question wrong.
A. Evil spirits, but not persons. B. Symbolic personifications of evil. Or C. Evil persons of a purely spiritual nature. Once again, for those playing at home, Catholics believe demons are A. Evil spirits, but not persons. B. Symbolic personifications of evil. Or C. Evil persons of a purely spiritual nature.
I'm going to say C.
Wait, I didn't hear what it was. What was his answer?
He said C. He got it right.
C.
Oh, C. Okay,
Yes.
I apologize.
Good job, Mark.
You are correct. It's a little weird to hear the happy, joyful, we're playing a game show music. We're talking about demons, but you can explain the answer to...
Yeah, well, as you say in the answer, they are evil persons. Now, they are evil in as much as they have rejected God, right, upon their creation. So as the Catechism points out in 391, the devil and other demons were indeed created naturally good by God, but they became evil by their own doing. Now, indeed, they are persons, right? They are intelligent beings with intellect and will. They're rational creatures. But unlike we, as rational creatures who have a body-soul composite, unity there, demons, along with righteous, pure spiritual beings, right? They're purely spiritual, so they don't have bodies, correct? They're pure spirits. But demons would be pure spirits who have rejected God and thus constitute evil spirits, right?
So just remember the old song, I Ain't Got No Body, and you'll... all right, question number 2. That wasn't even funny. Nobody thought that was funny.
I don't know what you're talking about, brother.
All right, Teresa, here's your second question for round 1. Teresa, a sacrament is A, a visible sign instituted by Christ to give grace. B, an invisible sign of actual grace. Or C, not a sign, but only an act of grace. Let me do that again for folks at home. A sacrament is A, a visible sign instituted by Christ to give grace? B, an invisible sign of actual grace? Or C, not a sign, but only an act of grace?
Again, I'm going to say A.
I'm glad you said A. Were you just going to say A until you got one right, or did you know that one?
Yeah, I just figured I'll say all A's.
Good job, Therese.
Yeah, so...
that one I actually knew.
Beautiful. I bet you remembered it from that old Baltimore catechism, right?
Yeah, that's the...
I remembered it because I teach 7th grade.
Oh, good for you. Great.
Beautiful. Hey, that's
Great.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is a visible sign, though. There's a visible sign for every single sacrament.
It wouldn't be a sacrament if there was no visible sign, correct? Paragraph 1131 of the Catechism defines the sacraments as efficacious signs of grace instituted by Christ and entrusted to the Church, by which divine life is dispensed to us. So a visible sign that gives us grace, but it's a visible sign, and this is a key point, instituted by Christ. So it comes from Christ himself.
Okay, your question. No, I got to take a break. Nick says I got to take a break. So we'll take a quick break. We'll get to your question number 2 right after this, contestant number 2. That's Mark. Contestant number 2. Your question number 2 coming up right after this.
Hi, this is Trevor Williams from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Why do we need to pray? Well, the Catholic faith is all about communion with God. And prayer is the form that our communion with God takes. If we're not praying, we're not in communion with God. But we can get in communion with God really quickly by prayer. It's the easiest, quickest, and only route to connect to our Creator. And that's what we're made for. That's why we need to pray.
That's the game show music. That means it's time for the Catholic Answers game show. Recently voted the world's greatest game show by my family. Thanks so much for being here with us. We've got Teresa in New York, Mark in North Carolina, playing for a fabulous selection of prizes, which we will get to shortly. We are in the midst of round 1. On question number 2, round 1 for Mark. Mark, which of the following is not one of the precepts of the Catholic Church? Which of the following is not one of the precepts of the Catholic Church? A, to observe the days of fasting established by the Church. B, to pray the rosary. C, to help provide for the material needs of the Church. Once again, for those playing at home, which of the following is not one of the precepts of the Catholic Church? A, to observe the days of fasting established by the Church. B, to pray the rosary. C, to help to provide for the material needs of the Church.
It B, the rosary.
Good for you. Congratulations.
It is correct that praying the rosary is not
right.
a
Yeah,
precept
right.
of the Church.
Yeah, we made that as complicated as we could. So, so you are one of those people who doesn't like the Rosary or Mary. I'm sorry to hear that, Mark. Is that? No, that's not.
That's
really true.
called a non sequitur.
That was a non sequitur.
That's
Yes.
right.
What's the precepts of the Catholic Church? I don't even know what that is. What is that?
Well, the precepts are found. These are certain precepts, sort of the minimal approach to Catholicism that all Catholics are bound to follow, right? And the precepts are listed in paragraph 2042 in the Catechism. First precept, attend Mass on Sundays, holy days of obligations, rest from servile labor, right? And then it goes on to articulate the other precepts of the Church, as you articulated in some of the answers there, observing the days of fasting, providing for the material needs of the Church, etc.
All right, we are on to your last question of round 1, contestant number 1, Teresa. Teresa, the Church at the time of the Apostles... No, I did this again. Maybe I should stop wording these backwards like this. Okay, but here we go, Teresa. The Church at the time of the Apostles did not have A, sacraments, B, a hierarchy, C, a belief that one is saved by faith alone. Teresa, the church at the time of the apostles did not have A, sacraments, B, a hierarchy, C, a belief that one is saved by faith alone.
Oh my gosh. Can I get Carlos to help me?
Oh, sure. You can get Karlo to help you. What do you want? Do you want him to do the Pig Latin or you want to do the 50-50?
I want Pig Latin.
Pig Latin. You got it.
All right. Give me the instructions on Pig Latin again, Si. Help me out here.
You take the first letter off the word.
Put it on the end and add
then you
an
add
E.
the A sound.
Okay,
A,
all right.
any
So
A
here
sound.
we go. You ready, Teresa? All right.
Uh-huh.
All right. A leaf bay, hate, neoe, CA, evade, eBay, efe, loneae.
Could you get that one? Was it sacraments,
That
a
was
hierarchy,
very
or a belief that one is saved by faith alone? As sad as this is, that was the best Karlo has ever done. So which one?
That is awesome. So my answer is C.
Beautiful.
You are correct. Go ahead, Karlo.
Well, the sacraments were there. All 7 sacraments were there, right? The hierarchy was there. We see that in Jesus' teaching and establishing a rank of hierarchy. We see the bishops, presbyters, and deacons in Paul's epistles to Timothy and Titus, right? And we even see that in subsequent years, a few years after John the Apostle, about AD 107, in the writings of Ignatius of Antioch, right? Bishop, priest, deacon, threefold rank is there. But the belief that one is saved by faith alone, that is not a belief that was a part of historic Christianity.
It came a couple years later. What was the year?
Not a couple of years, maybe like 1,500 years.
Oh, 1,500 years later. Yeah.
Where the doctrine of justification by faith alone was introduced by Martin Luther and subsequent reformers. But that was not a belief that was a part of historic Christianity. Yes, St. Paul does say we're justified by faith apart from the works of the law in Romans 3:28, but that does not mean we're justified by faith alone, right? Works do play an essential role in our salvation, as James teaches us in James 2:24, where he says we are not justified. We are justified by works and not by faith alone. But of course, there's more nuances that have to be articulated concerning where do works fit in this movement toward God as our ultimate end, right?
Yep. All right. So nice work there. And thank you for making Karlo do the Pig Latin. Appreciate it. We go now to Mark in North Carolina for your last question of round number 1, Mark. Mark, Catholics believe that marriage is A, an eternal bond, B, a lifelong bond except in cases of annulment, or C, a lifelong bond. Once again, for those playing at home, Catholics believe that marriage is A, an eternal bond, B, a lifelong bond, except in cases of annulment, or C, a lifelong bond.
I'm going to throw the lifeline, and I'm going with the Pig Latin.
He wants the Pig Latin one.
Okay, you ready, Mark? Here we go, brother.
Yeah.
I fele only on debe.
That's not correct at all, but... What? That's not... Bond wouldn't be... On day bay, no, it would be
on bay.
On bay.
On bay. All right. Did you get that, Mark? Hopefully you understood that, brother.
What is marriage, Mark?
C.
Yes.
C. A lifelong bond. You are correct.
Now it's interesting, Mark. Why did you reach out for the lifeline on that one? Were you a bit confused with B?
Yes.
Si was trying to trip you up a little bit.
Caveat. The caveat again is like tricky because it could be that you get if the church grants annulment and they declare that there was no marriage, but
right,
that's
and
the
that's
point.
correct. That's right.
That's
the declaration of nullity says that the bond never existed in the first place.
So that's why you can't say a marriage is lifelong except in cases of annulment, because in annulment, specifically the declaration is there was no marriage.
Right.
Thank you.
Good job, Mark.
It sounds like I genuinely put Mark to sleep, but I think can we have Patrick Coffin back, please? All right, Mark. I told you not to mention Patrick Coffin. 888. No, I can't give out the phone number. We're playing the game show. I'm supposed to do the score now. We're the end of What is the score, Marie? We have 2 points for Teresa, 3 points for Mark. So Mark is ahead by 1 point after 1 round. We have the second round to go. We now go to round 2. Just a reminder, whoever survives round 1 and round 2 becomes the victim, the contestant for final judgment. So we're working our way towards final judgment. Well, we all are. Teresa, the first question of round 2 is for you. You ready to go, Teresa?
I am.
All right, here we go. Teresa, the Catholic Church believes in the universal destination of goods. The Catholic belief in the universal destination of goods means, this is so complicated, so you got to listen carefully. A, the whole of the natural world is given by God to the whole of humankind. Or B, it means, ultimately, there should be one government for all people. Or it means C, each person should do the most good that he or she can do. All right, once again, these are long, so I'm going to read it again. The Catholic belief in the universal destination of goods means A, the whole of the natural world is given by God to the whole of humankind. B, ultimately there should be one government for all people. Or C, each person should do the most good that he or she can do.
I have to say A, because that's my belief.
A is correct. And
Nice.
Teresa, that belief is the belief of the Catholic Church. Paragraph 2402, in the Catechism, states, in the beginning, God entrusted the earth and its resources to the common stewardship of mankind to take care of them, master them by labor, and enjoy their fruits. The goods of creation are destined for the whole human race.
And the shorthand for that is the universal destination of goods. That's
There
how
you
we
go.
talk about that. Nicely done. Nicely done,
Good
Teresa.
job.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to Mark now for your first question of round 2. Mark, the Catholic belief in the universal destination of goods includes the belief that A, private property is necessary for the common good. B, private property is forbidden. C, all private property is an illusion. Once again, for those playing at home, the Catholic belief in the universal destination of goods includes the belief that A, private property is necessary for the common good. B, private property is forbidden. Or C, all private property is an illusion.
The answer is A, private property is necessary.
Very good, Mark. Yes, Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2403, affirms this proposition, private property is necessary for the common good. But in the previous paragraph, in paragraph 2402, it gives the reason for it. It says the earth is divided up among men to assure the security of their lives, endangered by poverty and threatened by violence. The appropriation of property is legitimate for guaranteeing the freedom and dignity of persons and for helping each of them to meet his basic needs and the needs of those in charge. So the church is affirming the necessity of private property as being necessary for the common good and given the reasons for it.
Okay, so, but if God made everything for everybody,
right?
I'm sorry, Teresa and Mark, I got to work this out with Karlo. We'll be right back to the game show. But that for the purposes of the common good, we must respect private property. There must be private property then is not an absolute right. Is that correct? Did I reason that out correctly?
Correct.
So like if I have something that someone else desperately needs,
right,
it actually belongs to them.
That's where that's right, because justice would demand that you help that other individual achieve the goods that he or she is naturally ordered to. If your possession of that property is in principle impeding and thwarting that other individual from achieving the natural goods that God has ordained that person to, love, charity, justice would demand that we help that person achieve that good.
So
if our possession of if our possession of some good and keeping it from them is thwarting them from achieving it. Now, of course, we could do something to help that person achieve some good, right?
Yeah.
But if we're unable to do that, then we ought to share what goods we have with that other individual. In principle, those are the principles that would guide our assessment of that scenario.
Right. So if that's a pretty heavy obligation on us. Like
Right.
if I've got something that I got some food and you desperately need food, in a certain sense, the food is a gift to both of us from God. And if I keep all of it, I'm keeping God's gift to you from you.
In the circumstances that you have the capability
Yeah.
and the means by which you can provide that good to the other individual.
All right. Teresa and Mark, we're still playing the game show. I just had to get that all straightened out so I knew what I was supposed to do with my goods this weekend. Karlo Broussard is our guest. Teresa in New York is contestant number 1. Mark in North Carolina is contestant number 2. We're playing the game show. We'll continue with round 2 and work our way towards Final Judgment right after this on Catholic Answers Live. A few minutes each week with our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, will help you understand and defend your Catholic faith like a boss. Get it wherever you get your podcasts or listen anytime at CatholicAnswersFocus.com. We Catholics just celebrated the Assumption and Coronation of Mary, so we asked Father Hugh about these important feasts, and he ended up telling us some really cool things about Mary going to heaven and being crowned queen. Also this week, the Catholic Church teaches that our justification, which can also be called getting right with God, is not a one-time thing but a process. But the letter to the Romans seems to imply that our justification might just be a one-time event. Karlo Broussard explains the truth about what St. Paul taught and why the Catholic Church gets this one right. Catholic Answers Focus is free, brand new twice a week, and now available on YouTube.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
How do we know Jesus founded a visible, organized church? Is today's Catholic Church the same as the Church of the Apostles and the early Christians? What can I say to someone who claims the medieval church became corrupted by pagan ideas and practices? In 20 Answers, The Church, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, helping you to understand how the church Jesus founded is able to carry on through history his mission of teaching and sanctifying his followers. 20 Answers, The Church is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the church and the world. All in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Does the church have too many rules? Join me, Dr. David Anders, as we answer your questions right here on Called to Communion, Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
It's Catholic Answers Game Show. Only happens about once every 2 months now, so it's a rarity when you get to be here for the game show. Mostly because we don't want to give away prizes. It costs a lot of money to give away prizes. We don't like doing it.
Speaking of distribution of goods.
Yeah, we don't want to distribute our goods for free. One of the wrong answers was private property is an illusion. Bob on Facebook said, in my case, private property is an illusion. That's funny. Okay, so we're not going to give out the phone number because we got 2 guests here with us, Teresa in New York, Mark in North Carolina. We're playing for Pride on each side of the Mason-Dixon line. And right now we are in the midst of round 2, heading towards Final Judgment. At the end of round 2, we'll add up all the scores and see who's got the most points. That person will go on to Final Judgment. But I should say, each have already used one of their 2 lifelines. They've all each used their Give Me the Correct Answer in Pig Latin lifeline. But both of you, Teresa and Mark, have the 50-50 lifeline left. That means Karlo will take out one wrong answer, and then you got a 50-50 chance at it after that. We go to Mark's question now. It's Mark's turn. Excuse me.
Teresa.
We just did Mark. It's Teresa's turn. So Teresa, question number 2 of round 2. Teresa, the deposit of faith, A, includes scripture and tradition. B, has already been made completely explicit. Or C, does not include the deuterocanonical books. That's a hard question, Darren. Why'd you let me put this one in here? All right. The deposit of faith. I got to read it again for those playing along at home. Grandma and Grandpa know the answer to this, but I don't think the kids do. I don't think we do this kind of catechism anymore. The deposit of faith, A, includes scripture and sacred tradition. B, has already been made completely explicit. Or C, does not include the deuterocanonical books.
The deposit of faith, you said, is the question?
Yes, the deposit of faith.
But like the word is deposit.
Yes. Deposit, yeah, just like you would deposit something into a bank account. God has deposited something with us for our faith life. Do you want me to do the question again?
Okay, can you give me the answers again?
Yeah, sure, I will. Do you want me to just give you the right answer and we'll cheat? Just don't tell Mark, and I'll just give you the right answer. Oh, no. I always get an angry letter from somebody when I joke about cheating. Do not cheat. Nobody. No cheating out. See how stern I got? I don't want to get that angry letter again.
Yeah, but that's what confession is for.
No.
Now I'm going to get that letter because of you, Teresa. I'm going to get that letter. Right. Okay, Teresa, the deposit of faith the deposit of faith, A, includes scripture and tradition. B, has already been made completely explicit. Or C, does not include the deuterocanonical books.
Okay, Karlo, take one away, please.
All right, I'll take away C, does not include the deuterocanonical books.
Okay, I'm going to say A.
Very good, Teresa.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah,
you got mad at me. You wanted me to take away B.
Well, I thought
it would have been easier.
I think you would have made it easier on her. Yeah, if you took away B.
Good job, Teresa. I'm proud of you. Yeah, paragraph 84 in the Catechism states the apostles entrusted the sacred deposit of the faith, the depositum fidei, contained in sacred scripture and tradition, to the whole of the church. So the deposit.
Yeah, I've never heard that term, deposit of faith.
Yeah, it refers to the body of revealed truth coming to us from Jesus and the apostles. That body of revealed truth is contained in both sacred scripture and sacred tradition.
Could you just real quick explain the reason why has already been made completely explicit is a wrong answer?
That is correct, because although the stuff is there, right, in this completed form, it requires some things are not seen in an explicit way yet by the church. And this is the proper understanding of the development of doctrine, right? So we have the revealed truth, but some things aren't seen immediately. It takes time. And the church praying, through the liturgy and meditating on the Word of God, and then coming to a greater understanding and a more penetrating knowledge of that revealed truth, and then giving sort of formal definitions of propositions that you wouldn't see formalized in the early church in the first centuries, but the stuff is there, the reality is there. It just takes time to see it and then formalize it. So Mary's Immaculate Conception, Mary's bodily assumption, even the Trinity itself, right?
It's all part of the original deposit,
and
but
the
it
two
needs
natures
to be
of
explained.
Jesus. That's all there in reality, but it takes time to see it with more clarity and give a formal explanation of it.
And we never get rid of the deuterocanonical books.
Amen. It's part of the Old Testament.
That's
it's inspired Word of God.
One of the two basic rules of life: never get rid of the deuterocanonical books, and brush every day. Let's okay. Your second question of round 2.
You got to include wash your hands, brother.
Well, yeah, that's a new right. Wash your hands all the time. Okay. Your second question, Mark in North Carolina. Private revelations. A, add to the deposit of faith. B, are not part of the deposit of faith. C, take away from the deposit of faith. Mark, private revelations. A, add to the deposit of faith. B, are not part of the deposit of faith. Or C, take away from the deposit of faith.
B, not part of the deposit of faith.
I bet. That is correct. Good job, Mark. I bet he listened to our previous hour. If he's listened to every Catholic hour of Catholic Answers Live, he got the answer to that question in the previous hour.
Yeah, because a woman called up asking about a private revelation from this Irish lady.
Mark, am I right on that one?
No, because most of the episodes I get through the magic of podcasting.
Oh, okay. All right.
That would have been smart for me to have listened to the first one. But
it's okay if you want to just say I listened to all the episodes except Carlos. It would hurt him. But
yeah, Mark is right. Paragraph 67 in the Catechism affirms this, that private revelations do not belong to the deposit of faith. However, at least we're speaking about those approved, right?
Yeah.
They do not improve or complete Christ's definitive revelation, right? But they do help us live more fully by it in a certain period of history. So there is a good of private revelations approved by the church, but they do not belong to the deposit of faith in sacred scripture and tradition, and thus are not binding on us as Christians to believe.
All right, your last question of round 2, Teresa. Jesus had A, a human body, but not a human soul. B, a divine nature, and he merely appeared to be human. Or C, a human body and soul. Teresa, once again, Jesus had A, a human body, but not a human soul. B, only a divine nature, and he merely appeared to be human. Or C, a human body and soul.
Oh, gosh, this is a trick question, guys. Jesus was fully human and fully divine, so it's either A or C. I can't ask Karlo for help.
Wait, I'm going to read the answers to you again, because I think you're ready to just give us the correct answer. So I'm going to read them again, and if you think about them closely, because you said he's fully God and fully divine, so the answer is there.
He's fully human,
yeah,
and fully divine.
So
That's what she said.
Here's the answers again. If you know that, then here's the answers again. You get to pick from. Jesus had A, a human body, but not a human soul. B, only a divine nature, and he merely appeared to be human. Or C, a human body and soul.
Okay, I'm going to say
A. Did you say A? Oh,
A.
you got that one wrong, Teresa. So sorry.
Wait. You said wait.
Go ahead.
Explain.
Okay.
No, just explain to me.
Okay, a human body, but not a human soul
would mean not fully man.
That's correct. But a human body and a human soul, that's a full human being. So that was C. The right answer would be C. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got you with the not.
Sorry about
that. Actually, if you think about it, a body without a human soul is either going to be A, a corpse, right? Yeah. Or B, like a zombie or something.
Yeah,
right?
It's not really
a body that's being manipulated by some spirit that's not essentially ordered toward it, right?
Okay, so, your last question of round 2, Mark in North Carolina. Jesus descended to the realm of the dead. A, but his soul never separated from his divine nature. B, but his soul was never separated from his body. Or C, but his soul remained in heaven. Your final question for those who are playing at home, once again, Jesus descended to the realm of the dead. A, but his soul was never separated from his divine nature. B, but his soul was never separated from his body. Or C, but his soul remained in heaven.
I'll throw that lifeline.
Okay, 50-50.
Okay.
Throw one out.
I'm going to eliminate C, but his soul remained in heaven. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But I'm eliminating C, but his soul remained in heaven. So you got either A or B. Sai, you want to repeat those?
Okay, A is his soul was never separated from his divine nature, or B, his soul was never separated from his body.
It has to be A, because if it hadn't separated from his body, he would never have died.
Amen, brother. You got it. Good reasoning that one out.
That's some good philosophy there, brother.
Yep. So what does that mean?
Well, okay, so his soul was never separated from his divine nature. That is the person of the Word, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one divine person, second person of the Blessed Trinity, was united to both soul and body in the separation of the soul and body in death. Yeah. So this is a great mystery, right? The St. Thomas Aquinas reflects upon this in the third part, the Tertia Pars of his Summa Theologiae, question 50, article 3. He affirms that the Word of God is united to both soul and body in Jesus' death, even though the soul is separated from the body. And even the Catechism affirms this. In paragraph 630, during Christ's period in the tomb, his divine person continued to assume both his soul and his body, although they were separated from each other by death. That's a mystery.
There's a lot of mysteries in the incarnation.
Yeah.
The incarnation brings kind of a reality that is beyond our mind.
That's why it's called a mystery of faith, brother.
Yeah.
And that's why it had to be divinely revealed. Now, I eliminated C because if Mark would have answered C, I would have had to have given him the right answer. Because Christ
in the beatific, he always had the
beatific vision from the moment of his conception. So even in his death, the Christ's human soul had the beatific vision, and thus, quote unquote, heaven.
Marie, are you there? You want to tell us what Teresa is taking home with her? Because after 2 rounds, Mark, you now go on to Final Judgment, and Teresa, we got some prizes for you for playing with us. We got.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Marie, what do we got?
Teresa's going to take home both of Carlo's current books that are published.
Okay, so Carlo's 2 books. So she's going to get a copy of Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. And she's also going to get a copy of Carlo's newer book, which is Meeting the Protestant Challenge, How to Answer 50 Biblical Objections to Catholic Faith.
Catholic beliefs.
Catholic beliefs. Oh! I was so close.
By one, brother.
I was so close. Teresa, congratulations. I mean,
that's great. Thank you. I could actually use that second one.
Fantastic. Teresa, I hope you enjoy them.
That was fun, and you did great.
Thank you.
Darren actually came into my office this morning and said, those are harder than the usual questions that you give. So that was a pretty impressive performance from both of you. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back for Final Judgment from Mark. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks so much.
This is Harry Connick Jr., and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
The devil will always do his best to tempt you into sin until you get to that place where you love sin. That's what he wants. He wants you down there with him. And not because he loves you, he hates you. When you do what the enemy tempts you to do, he does it out of pure hatred.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Okay, so we're about to go back on air. Mark, you ready for your Final Judgment?
Right.
Okay.
Perfect. We got you now.
I hope I can say that in actual time. For Final Judgment. For my Final Judgment.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I hope I can say I'm ready. I feel like I won't be saying that. I'm working towards that. Oh, I need the list of books. Okay. All right. It's so funny when you don't do this for a while, you forget. Do you have the list of books for me? You're the best, Marie.
She's married now, man. She got extra greases flowing. She's on top of her game.
If everybody could see how happy Marie is, they'd all be getting married right now. They'd just be grabbing people off the street getting married. Huh. No. Oh, we're on the air right now? Oh, welcome back. That was a terrible trick. That was a terrible trick. I was talking about Marie.
God, we were behaving ourselves.
I know. Well, imagine if we were saying something bad. You're welcome back to the game show. It's time for Final Judgment from Mark. Mark says he is prepared for his Final Judgment. Mark, let me explain to you how Final Judgment works, and then you can tell me if you really are prepared for your Final Judgment. We got 7 true or false questions. Each true or false question has a prize attached to it. If you get the question correct, you get that prize. If you get all 7 true or false questions, and I made them kind of hard this time, if you get all 7 of them, you also get $50 to spend however you like at shop.catholic.com. All that clear to you, Mark?
That is. I'm ready.
All right.
Fantastic.
All right. You are ready. Did I say how happily married Marie is on the air? Did that go out on the air?
It did.
It did.
Mark
Okay.
said it did.
Okay. Well, she is. She's very happily married. Maybe David's mother is listening in England, and she'll be so happy to hear that. See, maybe that was fortuitous. All right, you're playing. The first question is for a book called One Less God Than You by our good friend John DeRosa.
Highly praise that book. Fantastic book. Good friend, John DeRosa.
And John's a good guy,
Yes,
too.
he is.
So this is a great prize, worth playing for. It's a true or false question. Mark, true or false, the hierarchy of Pope, cardinals, bishops, priests, and deacons existed in the early church?
True.
Oh,
why did you say?
No, boing.
That was the wrong sound effect. The answer is false.
So, Mark, the key word there in that is cardinals, right? And even technically like Pope, because Pope is not something distinct from bishops. He is the Bishop of Rome. He just has supremacy, right? So you have bishops, priests, and deacons existing in the early church. Cardinals didn't come about until the 8th century. So, and that's an honorary title that's given to some to help the Pope in administration of the church, right? So that was a little tricky one there for you, Mark.
Mark did 23 years in the Army, and now he sounds mad at me. I
You better watch out,
this
brother.
This is a highly trained person.
Yeah, that's it, man.
And he doesn't sound like he likes me now. All right, that was a kind of a tricky one. Sorry. The only thing about One Less God Than You is it is a great book, and now you're not getting it. So let's go to question number 2.
One less book.
Maybe we'll find a way to play for it again. One less book for you. This is not supposed to be so mean. All right, question number 2 is for Secrets from... Oh, this is a good book from Father Sebastian Walsh. A great book on the parables and sayings of Jesus. True or false, Mark? Mary is worshipped by Catholics because she is full of grace. Mark, true or false? Mary is worshipped by Catholics because she is full of grace.
False.
He got that one right,
You're saying
brother.
she's not full of grace?
Not worshipped.
She is not worshipped.
There
You're
you
correct.
go. That's right. One does not follow from the other, right? Just because she is full of grace, it doesn't follow that we worship her because she is a creature.
You can't worship
created
a creature.
by God. That's right.
I'm going a little quickly now, just because the clock is ticking away here. Now you're playing for Prepare the Way from Karlo. All right, this is Prepare the Way: Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, or the Church. This is question number 3.
Well, never mind. Sorry, I was about to say something. Go
True
ahead.
or false, Mark? True or false? Mary is the greatest of all creatures. True or false, Mark? Mary is the greatest of all creatures.
False.
Oh, that was true, Mark. It's true, man.
Yeah, I'm overthinking it.
Yeah.
I think I know what he was thinking. He was thinking Jesus is greater.
Right, but Jesus is not creature.
But he's not
He is
creature, he's
creator.
creator. And that's the thing is, this is very hard because his human nature is a creation, but Jesus is not a creature.
Correct.
That's really hard, though.
Yes.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, Pius XII, in his encyclical on proclaiming the queenship of Mary, states, "For from her union with Christ she attains a radiant eminence, transcending that of any other creature."
All right, question number 4. Playing for Joe Heschmeyer's book, Pope Peter. Joe Heschmeyer
Great book.
has 2 books out right now. One of them is great. It's called Pope Peter, and I say it's great because that's the one we publish. So the other one he could sell on his own. Pope Peter, you're playing for true or false, Mark? By nature, all angels are higher creatures than humans. True or false, Mark? By nature, all angels are higher creatures than humans.
True.
That's right. And
Good
by
for you.
nature is the key there. So if we consider the Blessed Mother, right, our previous question, insofar as she is human, compared to Michael the Archangel, insofar as he is a pure spiritual being, he is greater by nature. But Mary does supersede Michael in the order of grace, in as much as she was called to be the mother of the Son of God.
And now she's the Queen of Angels.
Queen of Angels.
I know because
Amen.
we have a parish called Queen of Angels,
you
and
go.
they got her picture on it. True or false, Mark?
Good job, Mark.
I'm continuing. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let him play again for One Less God Than You by John DeRosa for question number 5, because the book we had here is not out yet. So he gets another shot at One Less God Than
Good.
You. So here we go. You're playing for One Less God Than You, the fine new book from John DeRosa. True or false? Baptism is the only means that we know which ensures entry into eternal beatitude. True or false, Mark? Baptism is the only means that we know which ensures entry into eternal beatitude.
True.
Very good, Mark. Paragraph 1257 in the Catechism.
And now you've got One Less God Than You by John DeRosa.
That's it.
This is going really well. All right, well, now we're going to play for The Bible is a Catholic Book. Do you know the author of The Bible is a Catholic Book? That's not the question. He's like trying to think about it because he doesn't want to. No, the answer is Jimmy Aiken. No, that wasn't the question, though. The question is, you're playing for The Bible is a Catholic Book. The question is, true or false, Catholic faith is meant for everyone. True or false, Mark, Catholic faith is meant for everyone.
True.
Very good. Jesus desires all to be Catholic. Period.
Really? Everybody?
Everybody. Why? Because it's the fullness of the truth and life that he came to give. And Jesus wills that all come to experience that truth and life, that their joy may be complete. But the caveat is that he wills for us to be participants in his divine plan to bring people to that truth and life.
It's a lot of responsibility he's given us.
Indeed it is. A great dignity, though.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the cup half full, right?
Right, yeah.
It's a great dignity.
That we get to invite other people into the fullness of truth, even though we don't.
God wills to work in and through and with us in order to accomplish his divine providence, to execute his providential plan.
All right, Mark, I got to say this to you before we do question number 7. You're playing for Meeting the Protestant Challenge by Karlo Broussard, our extraordinary guest today. And I just want to say this right up front. This is not a trick question. Because I'm going to say it, and you're going to go, is that a trick question? And it's not a trick question. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Mark, true or false? The man Jesus is physically alive right now. True or false, Mark? The man Jesus is physically alive right now.
That is tough.
Now I
don't overthink.
No,
it.
do not overthink.
And listen, I'm gonna help you out. Just say this: Jesus is physically alive right now. True or false?
False.
Oh!
What?
Mark, did Jesus rise from the dead?
He did.
Is he alive forever?
And I think it.
You overthought it. Yeah.
I thought I was going to help you by saying it's not a trick question, and I think I made it worse. Everybody's looking at me like, you idiot, why'd you say that to him?
He was probably starting to think Nestorius, man, and thought maybe you were going in that direction of a schizophrenic
Can we give him the
Jesus?
book anyways,
Yeah, I
Marie?
think so.
Marie, okay, assistant producer. Fortunately, Marie is very happily married.
Hey, it's my book, so I get to judge that he gets it.
Okay, good. Good. Carlo judges. Because I made it all weird, but I just didn't want him to be like, oh, that's a trick question. And then, sorry about that. Mark, you're a great guest. Thank you very much.
I had so much fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, I got to tell him what he won. He won One Less God Than You by John DeRosa. He won Secrets from Heaven by Father Walsh. He won Pope Peter from Joe Heschmeyer. He won The Bible is a Catholic Book by Jimmy Aiken. And he won, but he's getting Meeting the Protestant Challenge by Karlo Broussard. Mark, again, thanks for your 23 years of service to this country and for your listening to Catholic Answers for all these years, despite the fact that Patrick Coffin left and the show went downhill after that. And thanks for playing with us today.
Great. Thank you. Hey, quick shout out to Father Capodanno High School in Bass, North Carolina, Sacred Heart and St. Anthony parishes here, and John Paul II Elementary School in Southern Pines. The Archdiocese Military Service for all the wonderful things over the years. And
Amen.
You guys there at Catholic Answers are the giants of Catholic apologetics, and I love you all.
Thank you, Mark. It's all very kind.
Amen to that.
That's great. That's cool. Do we allow shout-outs? Am I in trouble now? Or no, that's okay? All right. I'm just kidding, Mark. Sorry. It's Friday. That was fun doing the game show, Carlo. That
Thank
was
you,
great.
Cy, for having me.
I feel
it
like
was a pleasure to be a part of the game show.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm not thrilled with all my wording. I feel like I might have hurt Teresa a little bit with some of my wording. But I guess I just let it go. Okay. I'll just let it go.
She's an interesting gal. I
yes,
think
she
she'll
is.
Be fine.
She said there's nothing interesting about her, and she was very interesting.
And she's like a teacher of 7th grade. I mean, come on. That's like as interesting as you can get because that requires strength, baby. Let me tell you.
You're a guy that knows.
I know.
You taught those kids.
I'm teaching them right now in the house.
Darren, who we got on Monday? Can you tell me? Oh, yeah. What's that?
Cool.
We're going to talk about, what with Mark? It's the pro-life one? Oh, we got Father Sebastian Walsh on, too. Oh, yeah, the Mass is a Victory Banquet, first hour on Monday. Second hour, Father Sebastian Walsh is going to talk with us about God's providence.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Karlo Broussard has been our guest. His brand new book, Purgatory Is For Real, is not quite available yet, but it's available for pre-order on Amazon and shop.catholic.com. Purgatory Is For Real by Karlo Broussard. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations. We'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Live.